So, I remember watching a really cool anime at one point called Noragami. Noragami is about this main character, this small god who's trying to build a, cult following, some worshippers, so that he can have a place with all the other big Shinto Japanese gods. And it's a really fun story, I enjoyed it a lot, but one thing that stuck out to me was that, and this is spoilers, the main character was born of a wish for violence, and that is why he's kind of no longer really relevant anymore, because people don't really need violent intercession on their behalf. There's no more war and any of these ugly things that would require a god of death, retribution, and war. But that was still a very interesting idea to me, the idea that gods are born of what we need, and gods are born of wishes. Now, if you go to Google and you type in, define deity, you'll get either the polytheistic answer, which is just a god or goddess in a religion, or you'll get the more monotheistic answer, which is the creator, the supreme being. And so, clearly, there are different ways that people think about gods. And when it comes to answering the question, what is a god? I think, first of all, we have to look at their stations, their functions, what they do, and where they were first discovered, so to speak. So as you can see, that monotheistic definition definitely works for monotheistic religions. The Abrahamic God is the creator deity, the one deity, the one doing everything. Angels and saints are not deities. They are beings that answer to him. And therefore, we might assume that a god is anything that smaller beings answer to. Things that you pray to, things that you defer to. They are the ones that dictate the world, and they are the ones that you have to plead with for change. At the same time, if you go into that polytheistic definition, you'll see that not all gods are creator gods. Oftentimes in polytheistic pantheons, there's only one, maybe two creator gods, and the rest are either their children or some other being that serves to support them, contradict them, or to take over very specific roles. So if we look at the Greek pantheon, you'll see that there are gods like Zeus, who is the, chief of all gods. He's the king of the gods, and his word goes for everybody, including the other gods. And we can see that other beings, like Athena, like Ares, are still considered gods because they have very specific functions over certain parts of the world. They are still the ones humanity asks for help when engaging in something like war or strategy or anything like that. It makes a lot of sense that, in a pantheon with multiple gods, that there would have to be one or two head honchos and the rest still divine beings that have to carry out certain ways of the world. But when we start thinking about it like that, we can also start wondering, are gods not just personifications? For instance, if we move to the Slavic pantheon, Zoria is absolutely a powerful goddess. She's a goddess of the dawn and the dusk. But specifically, she refers to the morning star and also the evening star. She as a goddess has a very specific role in that she opens the gate for the god that drives the sun by to go out into the world and carry that light around. And she's also the one who taught people magic in Slavic lore. But if you want to take a less mystic view, a more anthropological view, you can absolutely say that gods like Zoria are simply our way of understanding abstract concepts like the morning and evening star, like time with Kronos, like death with Thanatos in the Greek pantheon. You might also notice that they serve different roles. Even in the pantheons that have a creator god, or even in monotheism, there is generally some kind of adversary or destroyer that serves to work against them, that represents the things that people don't want in life: chaos, destruction, complete and utter disorder. People don't like that, especially in a lot of the cultures that these religions sprung up in. The whole idea of chaos and disorder and grief and hunger, all these things are very bad. They're very bad things, and the gods that were associated with them were either feared and beaten down, or they were appealed to in hopes that they would just keep it moving and not bother people if they got enough gifts and attention. Two very different schools of thoughts of how to handle these different kinds of deities. But speaking of that, sometimes things that one might consider a deity because it is a very extremely powerful cosmic being is not a deity at all. Case in point in the Kemetic pantheon, when we have the nope rope, that I will not say the name of because you're not supposed to, that thing is not a god. That thing is regularly made in effigy and then torn up, beaten, burned, all these other kinds of things because it symbolizes all of the destructive, primordial, chaotic abyss that the Kemetic gods pulled us all out of, created us out of. That is the ultimate enemy of the Kemetic pantheon, and it is not considered a god. The idea of worshipping it or trying to appease it in any sense is abominable to this religion. I'm sure another one you can think of is Satan himself, which, while that word got very taken out of context in Christianity, there is still that very prevalent idea of God versus the devil, God versus his enemy that he is trying to, keep from ruining all of us. The devil is not a god in Christian theology. The devil is either a fallen angel or some kind of just nasty spirit, a demon king of some kind out to ruin the world. Certain gods can be destroyers and have their role, like Ma Kali as well, where this isn't an evil deity. This isn't one that people want to avoid, but it is one that represents divine wrath and extreme cosmic change, because she is the master of time, change, and destruction. That doesn't mean that people think she's evil. They have high reverence for her. But she serves a very different role from the definition of a creator god. Likewise, there are other gods that are tricksters and deceivers, like Loki, who specifically work to invite a little piece of that chaos into people's lives. So we've just thought through a lot of things. We've seen that gods can have many different forms and many different definitions, that you can look at them in many different ways, and it comes to a point where you're still wondering, okay, what is a god? In my mind, as much as I enjoy the idea in Noragami of gods being born from us and our wishes, and that we, when faced with things we cannot control, create a being to, in the supernatural realms, move the chessboard pieces for us and arrange things for us to succeed, I think that does fall more in line with the idea of an egregor. An egregor being a thought form that when enough people pour their belief and energy and thought of how it should be into the world, that it does actually create a semi-sentient being that can interact back with us. Not quite like a deity, more like AI, but is still very much there and able to mess with the world around us. Gods themselves, I think, are beings that come from outside of us. They don't come from within us like egregors do. They don't come from our own thoughts and feelings. They are the things that set up the world as we know it. They are the ones that create and the ones that maintain and the ones that destroy when it is time. In ultimate definition, they are the deciders. That is what a god is. A great decider. This is why we get so many things about, God's will and this and that and the other thing, and fate and destiny. They write this story. They write it from its creation to its development to its destruction. And when you have that in mind, that's also why when certain times prayers are not answered, it's because gods don't really owe people anything. They're writing a certain story, and there's a certain order that they have to uphold universally. So when one person's wishes contradict the general order of everything else, It can't come to pass, and if it does come to pass, it sure as fuck wasn't supposed to. Gods are the ones that guard this world. It's really not so much about people as, like, autonomous beings as it is people as part of creation that gets them mostly concerned with us, because they see our potential for completely turning all of creation just on its head and making a mess of it, for being that force of destruction and chaos that no ancient culture ever wanted. But that doesn't mean they're not connected to us, because with us, in our own autonomy, it is very much a situation where, you know, we can either try and be in alignment with them, or we can try to get what we want regardless. When it comes to trying to get a concrete definition of what a god is, there's really no way to do that because of how varied their functions are, how varied their influence and power is, how attached or not attached they are to the individuals. Say you're like a house deity versus the king of all deities in a certain pantheon. Every single deity has a radically different function, different understanding, a different set of skills, a different set of responsibilities, and so there is no way to say, oh, gods are creators, gods are destroyers, gods are guardians, gods are this, gods are that. That's why I say at the end of the day, gods are deciders, gods are gatekeepers. Gods are the ones who make this world what it is, and who can at any point unmake it too. A little abstract, but it is fun to think about and it is fun to discuss. So with that being said, I hope that helps you think about it a little bit more, and I will see you around next week for our Archangel of the Month. See ya! By the way, if you want to see these videos 2 weeks earlier, consider subscribing to my Patreon, where you not only get all these videos, but also recipe cards, specific deity profiles, and lots of other interesting things to look at. Video tiers start at $10 a month, so definitely consider checking it out.